Hi, Tacoma. Hey, everybody. Hi, Justina. Glad to see you here. Elaine, hello, hello. I'm so glad my friends are here. Hey, Tacoma. My my tribe. Hello, Elaine. Ah, Marlene. Yay, Marlene's here. I love it. Vera. Awesome. How's the weather where you guys are? Cold? We finally melted our snow. A little bit of black ice situation going on, but in fact, I was behind an accident coming home, so I was a little late getting in, settling in, getting my tea, getting comfortable. So, but yeah, so here I am. Glad to be home. I live out in the country, so it's kind of crazy. Hi, Wendy. Hi, Rihanna. Yeah, I didn't recognize that name. Okay, cool. All right. Claire, Sarah Jane, how exciting. Minnie, oh, I love it. Okay, we melted our snow and warming up. Yay, I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, I love snow, but only if I don't have to go anywhere. So that's good that it's melted down. I was kind of stuck home for a day or two, but all is well now. So, okay, I am super excited that you're here tonight. Tacoma, you got your dandelion tea ready? Okay, so let's get right into it. This is a fascinating topic, and it's one of those that I get really passionate about. And I love it. I get really passionate about it. And hi, Lisa. Um, and I get a little mad and I get a little preachy. So, y'all, please forgive me. I know you didn't come for a sermon tonight, but oh, this is just, yeah, this is almost too much. It goes all through me. I get angry. So I have to bring it down a notch. My anxiety, right? I'm talking about anxiety tonight. And yeah, if you guys would, we're talking about anxiety, depression, and mood changes. And if you guys would, if you tap the little screen that sends hearts out and tells me that you love me, but it also tells the algorithm that this is cool content. And there's a little arrow down there for the share, so you can share with your friends and invite them. And I'm here every night at 7 o'clock, but I don't know the future of this platform, so it's a little scary, but I still will always keep showing up. So I'm told that what's going to happen is even if something happens to the platform, that people who are already seasoned in, that nothing's going to happen to us. It's just new users coming on. I don't know if that's true. You guys can tell me if you know. But I think that either way, if you would go, unless you're one of our tribe and you're in our program, if you would go and go to the link in bio, and it's kind of hidden, but it has like that little link thing, and then there's a link tree, and I have a ton of free downloads in there. So you just click on whatever you want, and it will ask you for your email. And so once I promise, I always say, we're not going to spam you. We are not going to sell your information, but that will let me connect with you so that I can send you an email if anything happens. And I tend to get, hi Reagan, and hi Claire, I tend to get in trouble on this platform. I've actually been hand slapped a couple of times because I tell the truth, and I'm not going to stop telling the truth. So anyway, any day I could not be here. So if I'm not here at 7 o'clock when you check in, or you don't see my live posted or my video invite, just know that I'm either on Facebook or I'm Instagram until they kick me off there. I'll still be here. And also in the link in bio is how you can go order a hormone test kit if you haven't done it already. So that's really cool. You can do that. And of course, the whole thing is really going to be talking about how to change your life and what the benefits of bioidentical hormones are. So that's my disclaimer. But I'm going to get right into this because I see we got plenty of people on. I think the algorithm invited lots of people into our party. So cool. Let's start. Okay. So the reason I am so passionate and angry is that I want to tell you a few facts, and I hope it kind of gets you angry too, and angry enough to really understand what we're up against. Okay, so I'm just crippling. I'm sorry, Amanda. So I'm going to tell you some things that you can do. So not only am I going to preach the gospel of hormones, but I'm also going to give you some things that you can do at home, right? Start now, right? Okay, so these are facts. You do with them what you want. It's, draw your conclusions. Antidepressants are a $16 billion a year industry. There was a study done in 2022. It was in the Journal of Molecular Psychiatry, and they showed that they call it chemical imbalance theory was never proven as far as serotonin goes. And the very first serotonin reuptake inhibitor was Prozac. I think almost everybody knows what Prozac is because it just blew up in the news suddenly. And so in this 2022 journal article, they actually showed that there was no clear statistically significant link between serotonin and anxiety, depression. And there's other articles to back that up too. So I'm just stating that one. I mean, it's pretty clear. So you can look that up, 2022 Molecular Psychiatry. And also that almost 40% of women in perimenopause and menopause are on an antidepressant or 2 or 3. Because what do they do when something's not working? They give you more of it or they up the dose. So that's what we're dealing with. Also, in some other studies, they actually showed that your risk of something called serotonin syndrome is very, very high. So what is serotonin syndrome? Serotonin syndrome is the very thing that they're trying to treat you with medications like Prozac. When you don't break down your serotonin like you're supposed to, and I've got some pictures here. I love to draw pictures. So I've got some pictures to show you how this actually works. But when your serotonin is kept around too much, and then if you happen to take another medication, because what do? They just keep sticking you on medications. And then you take another Effexor on top of Prozac. That's not working. Up the dose, add something else to it. They can actually cause something called serotonin syndrome. And I have seen it so many times in patients that come to me. And I have seen patients come on 15 different psych meds because then they start treating from side effects of other meds, and they call that polypharmacy. And what happens is when you can't break down your serotonin and you have too much around, it causes anxiety, it causes your skin to crawl, it can cause shortness of breath, and it can cause death. So these are not benign things that these medications can cause. And I just had a young girl, 21, with extreme ovarian dysfunction, so PCOS, extreme ovarian dysfunction, and she went to the doctor, and the doctor put her on Effexor. So she took the Effexor, and she felt worse, and she called the doctor's office, and she said, "I don't feel better, I feel worse." So they said double the dose. And she was like, "Okay," but they're like, no, it'll be fine. And then they went up to 75 milligrams. And she said that she doesn't even remember like 3 months of her life before she got off of it. Because she said that her family and friends were ready to institutionalize her. And she was very successful. She's like in her 20s and started her own business. And she's running her business. She's super, super smart. And nobody ever said, let's look at your hormones. They just said, you're depressed. Here's a pill. And it almost killed her. I mean, we have like this whole thing that we know that almost one of the number one side effects of antidepressants is suicide. So why, if they've never made that connection with that chemical imbalance theory, if they never made that connection, why are we putting people on something that could make them commit suicide, right? Okay, so my disclaimer right now is do not stop any medications because, well, first of all, I'm just a doctor, not your doctor, but do not stop any medications because there are dangerous withdrawal symptoms. That is a process. So when this particular girl tried to come off Effexor, she started getting like electric shock feelings, and that's very common with Effexor. And she thought she was going to die. And so I'm not saying that you can die coming off things, but it's almost like narcotics. Some of these medications you cannot stop cold turkey. So that's my disclaimer. Now, do I believe that there are some people, it makes me think, I don't know, this is probably not even a fair assessment, but I'm just going to say, I didn't ever really think, because I always knew there was a hormone component, because God didn't make our depression, anxiety to be a Prozac deficiency, a Celexa deficiency. Something is wrong. And I always knew that. But I was watching, it was the Batman movie, or no, it was the Joker movie. And I was paying for 5 years. I feel I'm going to have seizures when I stop. Yeah, you absolutely can. The withdrawal, especially from the benzodiazepines, can be very dangerous. So be careful, Tiffany. That's not something you want to mess around with. But I'm watching the Joker movie, and he was so psychotic. And I'm like, well, I don't know if those psychotic people should be on the streets. They should probably be like somewhere where they can get help. But it was the first time I thought, there probably really are people like that. So I don't want to say that there are mentally ill people and that they don't have something seriously wrong, or maybe they've had brain damage. A lot of people are on medications that can cause psychiatric changes. We know that for sure, that can mess with your hormones. I did the talk the other night about what can disrupt your hormones, including chemicals in our foods. So, a little personal story. My father had seizures when I was a kid, and he was on multiple different seizure medications, and they really changed his mood. Like he, yeah, was a different person when he started certain medications, and he said, I can't be on those meds. And then they put him on different stuff, but we saw it. Propranolol. So she's asking, what about propranolol? So propranolol is a blood pressure medication. Primarily, that's what it was, quote, FDA approved for, right? It helps with migraines, but it also can help with especially stage fright, because all it does, though, is slow your heart rate, because that's how it works for blood pressure. It works for palpitations or irregular heartbeat, because it hits the little beta receptors on the top part of your heart that causes the firing to happen. It's called a node. Hydroxyzine, I'll talk about that in just a second. So propranolol just slows your heart rate, because the heart rate is, the heart rate is in response to those beta receptors, which are also driven by estrogen, progesterone. So menopause, perimenopause, we see a lot of heart rate changes and fast beats or irregular beats like palpitations. And so that's because of the estrogen decline. That is an estrogen deficiency. That's not a propranolol deficiency, right? So yeah, it's just nuts to me. But the anxiety often is accompanied by those palpitations. So sometimes we'll use propranolol for people that have acute anxiety attacks. Most doctors will use those things like propranolol or hydroxyzine. Hydroxyzine is a antihistamine, and the side effect of this antihistamine, like Benadryl, is sedation. So it's literally just sedating you, right? So those are medications that they're using side effects for, but they usually try to talk you into that because they don't want to use Xanax or Valium or the benzodiazepines, Klonopin, things like that, because we know those are extremely addictive. What do I mean by addictive? Addictive means that if you stop it, you get sick. So we're talking about physical dependency. I'm not talking about, being addicted in the sense that it just feels good or whatever. I'm talking like when you stop taking it, you literally could die. Like narcotics and benzodiazepines are in that category. So I think that those aren't bad options. Tiffany said, yeah, it's awful. Hannah, yeah, they don't want to give me Xanax at all. Yeah, because it is addictive, and it can be really hard to get off of. And I can tell you a personal story about that. This was about, my son is 20 now. He was about 4 or 5 when I went through a divorce. And I was so stressed out. And I went to a doctor and I said, I have to do something. I cannot sleep. That it was so bad. And he gave me, I think it was Klonopin. And so I was like, I took a half of one, and I was like, how do people, I was like a zombie, like I couldn't even remember my name. And then I said, that doesn't work. And so, I'm like, I don't really want to be on the benzodiazepines. And so anyway, gave me Xanax because he said, that'll be out of your system really fast. And so I was like, okay. So I used it to sleep. seizure for the first time after coming off Xanax. Yeah. Yeah. Seizures are part of withdrawals. And so I use it for sleep. And so I took it for about a week. And then I realized I was like, I'm fine now. I'm going to stop it. I could not sleep. It's that thing where you're awake till 2 a.m. And the interesting thing is because it took me like almost a week to start sleeping again without it. And the interesting thing is not too long ago, I had the same thing happen with Benadryl because it's like, okay, Benadryl to go to sleep, right? No big deal. And then didn't take it. And I'm like, I'll wait till like 2 a.m. looking around the room going, why can't I go to sleep? And then I realized it was like, oh, that was Benadryl. So, I mean, even that, we don't think about things like getting addicted to PPIs or like Prilosec, that help with the stomach reflux. We can get addicted to that. Your body stops making stomach acid. And then you like don't take it and then you make all the stomach acid. And we're going to talk about the gut brain axis tonight. So your gut is very important for making your body's own serotonin. So I'm going to show you some pictures of that in just a little bit. So there are so many dangers to just putting band-aids on things. And what I find in patients that are on serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or what we call SNRIs, which are norepinephrine, which is another hormone we'll talk about here in just a little bit, even if it does kind of change their mood a little bit, it usually doesn't last. It usually, it's like they'll take it and then you have to increase the dose and then you have to increase the dose. Or it completely numbs you out. It completely diffuses the serotonin and the dopamine in your brain so that you can't get happy. You're just flat. Dopamine is the hormone in your brain that is what makes you really happy, like excited happy, like, just over the moon happy. Citalopram, okay, for 14 years. Yeah, so that is kind of like Prozac. It's a SSRI. Thyroid function, absolutely good call on that. I'll talk about that here in just a little bit too. Absolutely. Low thyroid can make you really lethargic, and then you're going to get depressed because you have no energy, right? So, so there are so many different aspects to just putting a Band-Aid on things. But if you don't have dopamine, which is, like I say, your happy neurochemical in your brain, then you're just going to be flatlined. Yeah, you might not like be anxious, but like life doesn't even matter. You're just numbed out. And the sexual side effects, the sexual dysfunction, like, not even being able to enjoy that is a really big part of that too. Most of those SSRIs do that. Low thyroid said I need to test it low. Yeah. Low thyroid is usually because you're either perimenopause or menopause. And I'll go over that just a little bit because thyroid absolutely does affect all of that. Then there's another little thing called the placebo effect. And there is absolutely, hyperthyroid. Yeah, that can make you anxious too because too much thyroid revs up the system. So absolutely. So there's something called the placebo effect. And I think most people know what the placebo is. But a placebo is when you have a research study and you have a medication or an intervention, a surgery, whatever. In one arm, you give them the medication. On the other arm, you give them a sugar pill, basically. And you compare and see over time which one performs the same or better. And then they look at statistical outcomes to see if the placebo had an effect or not. So we know that the brain is a powerful thing. We know that every single thing, this pen was once a thought. Somebody said, we need to make a pen. I love these pens, these little Signos, because like they're like a really good ink and it's really smooth. I love it. So somebody had one of those feather pens and they're like, oh, that's messy. Let's put the ink inside and then let's see. So this is such a thought. So our thoughts are very powerful. And I truly believe that if we think something's going to help, it will. Now, I do believe that medications do something. When we take a bioidentical hormone, it has an effect in our body, no doubt. If there is something naturally in our bodies that is deficient, it's absolutely going to have an effect. But if you are taking something that you think is supposed to make you feel better, this is supposed to, you think about it. This is a what we think is a brain chemical problem. And I'm going to talk about in a little bit, it might not be your brain, it could be your gut, because a lot of your serotonin is made in your gut. But, we think this thing's supposed to make you feel better. I mean, just the very nature of a medication for a psychiatric condition, just the very nature, we're asking for a placebo effect, right? Live TikTok, I missed the first 20 minutes. Oh, it's okay, Amy. Yeah, I'll post it. Sometimes it takes me a day or two to get them back up, but I try. And if you go to my Facebook and Instagram, they're automatically uploaded. So my Facebook page is Dr. Tammy. And so you should be able to see it. And I feel bad because the people who aren't on TikTok, I interact with you guys here. But the people on Facebook just kind of get me looking at you because I love you. You're my tribe. All of you are my tribe. But yeah, it's a little bit weird. So if you see me look over there, sometimes I'm looking at them too, all of us. But anyway, so the placebo effect. There's not a single drug trial, any kind of trial that doesn't have the placebo effect in it. Oh, thanks. I love you too. That doesn't have the placebo effect. So one of the things is I truly think that people think they're feeling better. And then, like they're like, do I really feel better? Do I not feel better? So the placebo effect is very real. In fact, I'll tell you about a study. I think this is fascinating. They took a group of patients who had knee pain or had a tear, meniscal tear or something, or no, I can't remember what it was, arthritis or something. And they put the scope in there for the arthroscopic surgery. And they just pulled the scope back out or just sewed them up and said, okay, that's one group. They took another group, actually went in, debrided it, got the, whatever extra calcium, whatever it was, fluid out, whatever they did, and then sewed it up. And they compared, and it was almost exactly the same. So the people who thought that they had that procedure did just as well as the people who didn't. And so, I just think sometimes we do have very powerful abilities to heal ourselves. And so, do with that what you will. I'm not telling you to just wish away your depression or your anxiety. Absolutely take some hormones, but sent my bio bag today. How often do you check hormone levels once I'm body identical? Yay, I'm so excited. Usually we give you at least 3 months to see where you settle out at, but we can always do, sooner. She's talking about our hormone test kit. So if you have not done it yet, please go to my link in bio, or you can go to hormonebliss.com, and my beautiful fiance is my moderator, and he'll put the website on there too. I love 3 months. Great. Yes. So go get a kit, and we check estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. I'm going to talk about why being low on those is the underlying cause of depression and anxiety. But at least test. So it doesn't hurt anything. It's a little over $100, so it's like super cheap. If you could find a doctor to check this, it'd probably be anywhere between $300 and $600 probably. So it's a really nice way to know. And I feel like when people get this done, it's more of confirmation that you're not crazy. So when I say crazy, I know people think that when they go to their doctor and they beg them to test, it's almost like you walk away from there because they look at you like you're just depressed, or they say, or you have so many symptoms, because in our test kit, there's this symptom profile that you fill out when you put your saliva in the tube. And it's like there's so many things on here that if you walked into a doctor, I mean, some people have almost all of these, that if you went into a doctor and you said, you know what, my hair's falling out, I'm gaining weight, I'm craving sugar all the time, I have allergies I never did before, I can't even tolerate a glass of wine anymore, I feel like my skin's crawling all the time, I feel cold and then I feel hot, I have no libido, I have irregular bleeding, I have panic attacks, I have muscle pain, frozen shoulder. You know what's going to happen if you walk into a doctor with that list? They're going to go, here's your antidepressant. I know it. I've been in the medical field for 25 years as a doctor, but I mean, I've been in the medical world my whole life because my dad was sick, he had seizures, and so yeah. So why is somebody not going, like you have all these things, there's something wrong. And I actually do have some of our local doctors who just do primary care, or even some cardiologists who will send their women to me because they don't want to mess with all that. I'm like, it's so easy. You just put them on some bioidentical hormones. It's not that hard. I mean, just because there are 70 different diagnoses or symptoms on here, there's really one fix for it. So non-flatline effect of ovarian failure to come with my buddy always talking about ovarian failure, because that's what it is. So I'm gonna talk about that in just a second. But anyway, so yeah, so when we think about the placebo effect, it's very, very, very powerful. I will say, and I can write this down if you want to, hormones be the cause of seizures? Absolutely, because estrogen in particular causes you to have a relaxation of your blood vessels. It makes them more elastic. And that's one of the reasons why people have trouble with blood pressure, I can't even talk. Blood pressure is because you're losing the elasticity in your arteries. And if you lose the elasticity in the arteries in your brain, it can absolutely cause seizures. It can cause lots of things. Yay, hormones are coming tomorrow to come. I'm so excited for you. So yeah, absolutely. Sun is for in having seizures. So there's another component of this. This is really fascinating to me. So I have a book, Rihanna, I want you to do this. Promise me you'll do this. If you go to my link in bio, it will take you to something called a link tree. And there is a download of my book, absolutely free. Download that. It's called the MTHFR solution. I know that sounds like a bad word. I think the title on there when I did download book is the methylation solution. You absolutely will want to read that. I think it'll be a game changer. What I'm talking about is something called methylation, and there is a genetic defect. And I did a talk the other night on genetics, so I think I have it posted, but it is on my Facebook page if you go back and look, I think, because we were having some technical difficulties the other night. But anyway, I will get it posted, I promise. But anyway, that is a problem where you cannot process. Yes, somebody knows. It's very common, actually. Very common. And you cannot process folic acid, which is a synthetic version. Long story about what they're sticking stuff in these days. But if you can't process folic acid, it accumulates as something called homocysteine, which is very inflammatory, and it can inflame. Oh, good. I'm glad, Rihanna. It can inflame the arteries and veins and the neurons in your brain and cause seizures. And the fix is so easy. It's taking methylfolate, not folic acid. Think about like battery acid, because the people who have that MTHFR can't process the folic acid. And that was a stupid idea that the food industry started putting folic acid into the food supply because they thought they were helping things and putting in prenatal vitamins. Oh my gosh, I can't even. But yeah, if you can't process that. So I think you'll be fascinated with that, Rihanna. How long after stopping birth control can you test your hormones? The interesting thing, Designs for Health, L-methylfolate. Yeah, there are some really good companies out there. We do have ours. If you go to my link in bio, we have a little shop page. So if you have any trouble finding a good one, we have a good one too. But yeah, there are some really good companies. If you see anything that says folic acid, do not take that. And in fact, that's one of the ways that I gauge whether a supplement company is actually a good, reputable company. Because if they don't know folic acid is bad for most people, then I'm like, why would you do that? Why would you stick folic acid in something? So I kind of depend on that. After stopping birth control. So you can test just about any time with the saliva test, because this measures the natural estrogen, progesterone, testosterone that is in your cells. So birth control will show up in your bloodstream, but this will actually show what's in your cells. If I'm going to do a blood test, I will tell somebody to stop birth control at least 4 to 6 weeks to let it get out of your system, because it is suppressing your ovulation. So it's completely shutting down, putting you in a menopause state. So it is a little bit altered, but I would say maybe 2 weeks at the most, and you'd be fine. You'd be safe. You could probably do it anytime, but I think you'd be safe that way. Okay. So I will say that there is a prescription medication, and if you're taking notes, you can write this down. You're welcome, Vanessa. You can write this down. There is one medication. I'll write it down for you here. It's called LAMICTAL. It's also called lamotrigine. And it actually, do we start with the kit? Yes, Sharon. Yes, yes, yes. So just go get the kit. That's sort of our entryway in. And the reason for that is because we want you to not feel crazy. We want to show you what's actually going on in your system. So you can go, oh, okay, yeah, I see that. So just go order a kit, my link in bio, or go to hormonebliss.com. It's my passion project. I want every woman who's dealing with all this crap to not have to deal with it and not end up on like a million medications. So absolutely go start that. And the shipping is free both to you and back to the lab. And then we include a free consult with one of our hormone coaches. So doesn't hurt to just kind of talk about it, see what we got, and see if some bioidenticals might be right for you, because I can pretty much tell you that they are. So, okay. So anyway, where were we? Oh, Lamictal. This is a seizure medication, and that was, quote, approved for seizures, but we use lots of medication off-label, like the propranolol. It's basically for blood pressure or for heart palpitations, and we use it off-label for anxiety sometimes, right? Or an antihistamine for allergies. We use it, the hydroxyzine, to help sleep, right? So a lot of things are off-label. Well, this is actually a seizure medication, and I occasionally will use it in my menopausal or perimenopausal females, because as you're trying to get the hormones balanced, if you don't want them to like rip somebody's hair out, it's not a bad idea. And what I tell people is that because it's a seizure medication, was studied for that a lot of times your anxiety is a looping behavior. Put it in the comments if you kind of know what I'm talking about. You have a thought, and then because your hormones are imbalanced, you think that thought again. And then you think that thought again. And then you get really agitated because you're like, she did not do that. She did not do that. Okay, I'm not going to think about that. I'm not upset. Intrusive thoughts, yes. And then you're like, really? I can't believe she did that. What? I think she did that? Oh, okay, now I'm not going to think about it. I'm going to go do something else. She did that? What? Oh my gosh. And then you call 10 friends, and then before you know it, you are so anxious, your heart is racing. So seizure activity is a firing of the chemicals, neurochemicals in your brain. And the lamictal is very interesting because it stops that looping firing just like it would a seizure, because a seizure is just a chemical response in your brain. It's not a physical response, it's a chemical response, right? That causes seizures can be either like absence where you're just staring off into space, but like the full like spasming thing. So lamictal is really good. And the interesting thing about lamictal is it actually works in the same pathway that with estrogen. So it works really, really well in perimenopause and menopause or in ovarian dysfunction. And the only real side effect is that it can cause a rash, and it can be like a really bad rash. So you have to like call your doctor if that happens. But it doesn't make you sleepy. It doesn't keep you awake. I've never had one patient who's told me anything other than they feel better on it. They just feel more balanced. It doesn't cause sexual dysfunction. So it is a really clean, if you're going to do a prescription medicine. And I do prescription medications. I'm not dogging big pharma. I'm just saying they have their place, but not when the cause is a hormone imbalance. That's the type my son has. Yeah. Another thing, Rihanna, that you might look into besides the MTHFR for sure is hyperbaric oxygen therapy. And this is not a talk about alternative functional medicine, but we have 2 hyperbaric oxygen chambers in our office, and it is amazing. I have seen so many neurological things. I had a young girl who actually came to me for her ovarian dysfunction, and her son was, I think he was 4 or 5 months old, and he had a birth trauma and was having seizures. And she gets in there probably twice a week with him to just hold him. He loves it in there, just, mom baby time. And he's not had a single seizure since he started doing that. That's just, it's so powerful. Called again, I'm willing to try it. Hyperbaric oxygen therapy. They also call it HBOT. Is that what you're talking about? Yeah, so there's a case in point. Christy said I had severe Stevens-Johnson syndrome from lamictal. So that is the one thing that is the thing you look for. So, but it is well tolerated. So nothing is without potential dangers, right? Even though some things have benefits, but I would always use lamictal over Prozac or Effexor or any of those other things that could give you serotonin syndrome, which actually makes you feel worse. Um, but yeah, so um, reading the comments, sorry. Okay. Yeah, so I'm going to get onto the board because we are halfway through our fun and game. So I'm going to get to the board. So everybody knows me, knows I have to do my little graph here. What did you say to take? It was a sulfate in it. I didn't know I was allergic. Oh, okay. Yeah, that could be a thing. Um, did she say to take Lamictal or lamotrigine? Can you see it there? Okay, so I'm going to talk about hormones now because I have to. But hang on, before I do that, I'm going to finish this. So there was a study. I gotta like, hi Shana. So I have to like talk a little bit more on this vein. Just a minute, and then I promise I'm going to get to hormones. So hormone fluctuations. There was a study done at Cambridge University in November of 2023. Now this is, I don't know which is worse, the chemical imbalance theory being disproven or the hormone fluctuations with anxiety, depression, and mood. What they found was same thing, but they found that all of these women were in, when they studied them, were in early ovarian failure, and that they really showed that antidepressants don't work in perimenopause and menopause. So Cambridge U, November 2023, Google that. Don't take my word for it. Go Google that. Take a screenshot if you want. I didn't have the whole article written out across here, but it's easy to Google. But yeah, so they found that it really didn't do anything. One of the things I will say too is that we actually have a genetic test for checking whether medications are going to cause side effects or whether medications are going to uh, work on certain chemistry. And they have a whole panel in psychiatry that they can actually check medications to see if they're going to have side effects because we really don't know if they're going to work or not, right? But to check and see if they got side effects, and insurance won't pay for it. So it's a pricey test. I don't know if you guys know the test I'm talking about. I can't remember what they call it. I think it's GeneSight or something like that. But I mean, if you're going to give somebody Effexor or Prozac or Celexa, wouldn't you want to know if you had a test that you could see and make sure it's not going to make them sick? Yeah, I had it. Okay, so somebody knows what I'm talking about. So, I mean, that just makes sense to me. It's like, at least I want to know if I'm not going to have side effects, whether I think it's going to work or not. Okay, so the age group of 40 to 49, which is this menopause group. Okay, now I'm going to go draw this graph for you. So bear with me, guys. My tribe is always here. Knows this picture. You got it memorized. Hydroxyzine safe. Yeah, we just talked about hydroxyzine just a minute ago. It is a antihistamine, meaning like if you have allergic symptoms, but it does have sedative effects. That's a side effect that they're using off label. So would I say safe? Yeah, we kind of talked about it. It's probably safer than getting on something that's addictive like a benzodiazepine or something like that. Okay, so this is from birth to 100. Let's hope you live to 100. And if you don't have hormones, you probably won't want to live to 100, but let's say that you do. And about the middle part here is about the age of 50. So this is when most women stop having periods. And I always say menopause is just 1 year without periods by definition. And that's it. So what we're dealing with is ovarian failure. We're born with all the eggs we're ever going to have. And when our basket is empty or our eggs are dried up, our ovaries are done. And so that's when we go into ovarian failure. And that is what we are dealing with from the age of 50 ish to 100. I have 0.2 testosterone, and my doctor put me on DHEA. I'm 41. Okay, yeah, that's a pretty low testosterone. DHEA does convert into testosterone. A lot of our folks want to go straight to testosterone, but I love DHEA personally, so that's not bad. You probably could get your testosterone levels up, about 20% on DHEA, but sometimes, like, I don't naturally make any testosterone, like, I'll flatline to zero, which is interesting because I always had, this is about you, not me, but I'm just going to tell you personal stories that the good Lord gave me these experiences so I could understand. But I had, what's called a skinny PCOSer, because most people who have PCOS are overweight because of the androgen effect. But my progesterone deficiency actually did not cause the androgen. So I like have no testosterone. And now now I'm in menopause, so it doesn't matter anymore. So I have to take it anyway, but I will bottom out completely. So, um, but yeah, so those are two options. You could do DHEA, but it's not going to get as high as testosterone. But please, if you do get talked into pellets from anybody, please be careful because you can get way overdosed on testosterone. So just be careful with that one. Oh, Sarah. Oh, I got so many stories, girl. I mean, I've lived it. Endometriosis, PCOS, fibroids, infertility. Okay, so anyway, I'm not I'm not complaining. I really truly believe that God does things for us and not to us. So I get to be here telling you I get it. I've had all the things. So yeah, 435 on testosterone in a woman is absolutely nuts. That would make you like want to go do a MMA fight or something like that. That's a guy's level. Guys, their range is like 300 to 1,000. So at 435, you're like a low end of where a male would fall. Okay, so what happens is this is setting the stage for the things that I'm going to tell you here, but we start to climb on our estrogen and progesterone, and this is estrogen and progesterone on this axis, and this is age in years. And so the estrogen progesterone fluctuates throughout our fertile years, and then about here is where perimenopause happens. And peri just means around, and this can happen as early as your 30s. And what happens is it really starts fluctuating, but this is the important part. So red is the estrogen, the green is the progesterone, and the progesterone falls off first. So here, because progesterone helps with sleep and it helps with inflammation and it balances out a menstrual cycle in males and females. TSH is 0.26, 1.25. That, you could, I'm gonna call you Daisy because I see Daisy on there. That could be a little bit borderline hyperthyroid situation, which can cause anxiety. So I'd need more information to comment on that. But okay, so progesterone starts dipping first, and then you stop sleeping. So sleep, when you're not sleeping, it will make you grumpy. And sometimes, like if I haven't slept, like something was going on, or like the Benadryl event I had, or stress, I'm like, I don't know the next day if I'm depressed or if I'm just freaking exhausted. And it can feel the same, right? So, but if you're not sleeping, and then every single day you have not slept well at night, that's going to feel like depression. So that is masking like the not sleeping. And the easiest thing for that is some bioidentical progesterone. I mean, it's the easiest thing in the world to fix. So I get so frustrated because it's all so easy to fix. But yeah. So when that progesterone drops off, that's a big deal. But it's these fluctuations of 1 minute estrogen, 1 minute progesterone. It's like wild. It's all over the place because you're running out of eggs and your ovaries are like trying to like, please, we don't want to die. Please stop. They're taking all our estrogen and progesterone away. So it's the begging ovaries that are freaking out and sending these messages to your brain. And hi, Constantina, sending these messages to your brain, and you're getting these very erratic anxiety and depression because now you have all these fluctuations. So you're not crazy, it's hormonal. So what do? You just give somebody some estrogen progesterone and balance that out, and then you take them across all the way into menopause. And people are always asking me, how long do I have to take hormones? And I say, till we regrow ovaries, because as far as I know, they haven't figured that one out. So yeah, so you can give somebody estrogen, progesterone, and they're happy, and they're not flatlined. They're not like crazy. It's crazy. It's so crazy. So my my prayer for you, if you have all of these symptoms, is get on some bioidentical hormones, because it's a game changer, and it's not a band-aid, and it can change your life. And once you start getting on all these meds, there's just no end to it. And they'll just keep pushing it on you. So anyway, I'm not saying stop meds. I'm just saying there is another way. Okay. Oh, I want to finish this. Key players are estrogen, progesterone. We're going to talk about cortisol and testosterone in just a little bit. And I think I already said that 40% of women menopausal age are on antidepressants. Okay, I got to get to the second board, and I'm almost to the end of our hour, so I better be brief and quick. Can we take that for the hyperthyroidism? Eek, flatliner, yeah. The hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. Testosterone thickening the blood. Okay, that's a great question. Testosterone can convert into estrogen, so it's not the actual testosterone per se, it's a conversion into a metabolite of estrogen called estrone. And I always say, when I say estrogen, if you guys are new here, there are 3 different kinds of estrogen. So you can go look that up. But 3 different kinds of estrogen. And one of the metabolites is a bit of a wild card. It causes you to grow tissues. It causes you to be youthful, right? It causes you to grow lining in your uterus. So anytime you can grow something that makes blood, like in your uterus, we call that proliferative or proliferation. So this hormone called estrone, it's great if you're in your fertile years. Can we talk? Fertile years. And you're trying to grow breast tissue. You want lots of estrone. But estrone can actually cause those vessels to be inflamed, which can increase clotting. And a lot of what got the rap is the synthetic version of estrone, which is what was in the 2002 study, because those synthetic estrogens in high dose, like they have to do for birth control, is very irritating to the fibrinolinic, I did it, system. Basically, fibrin is the clotting part of your blood, right? So lytic means to break down. So your platelets, all the fibrin is all part of that blood system. Testosterone can thicken the blood, but it's not really thickening. What it's doing is increasing your red blood cells. And what happens when you increase the number of red blood cells? If you have a blood vessel and you now have more red blood cells in it, that's not to scale, but now you have all these red blood cells, and I call it space occupying lesion, because now it's a bunch of red blood cells. So absolutely, we call it thick just because there's more, it's more viscous now. Why do you make more red blood cells? You make more red blood cells because testosterone is what's called an anabolic steroid, meaning growth, right? So it makes you grow muscles. So it has to get that oxygen to the muscles. So it mobilizes its iron stores and then pulls oxygen in the red blood cell to take it to your muscles, which is great. But if you make too many red blood cells, that can be a problem. So a lot of times with males who I have, on, 200 milligrams of testosterone a week, I will check their hemoglobin and make sure that they don't have too many red blood cells. So did that answer your question? It was kind of a long way around that. And I had to say fibrinolinic. I'm going to practice that and do it tomorrow. Okay. So a couple other things that I do want to talk. Okay. A couple other things, but it's really unlikely to happen. Women, really what we're struggling with women and blood clots is the synthetic estrogens. And wait, let me take that back. It's the synthetic progesterone, because that study in 2002, they took 2 groups of women. One they put on synthetic estrogen and progesterone, and one was just estrogen. It was the estrogen and progesterone, the synthetic progestins and ethyl estradiol that they used, And it was the arm that had the progestin in it, not even the arm that had the synthetic estrogen in it. So synthetic progestins are a very big problem. And so if you go back and watch my show the other night, it was all about that. So that's fascinating to me. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about um, this is the liver, and this is the stomach, and this is the small intestines. So you make about 70% of your serotonin in your small intestines. Now, the interesting thing is that serotonin doesn't cross what we call the blood-brain barrier in your spinal cord. What does that mean? That means your brain still makes serotonin, but not as much serotonin as your gut. So instead of telling people you need to take a serotonin reuptake inhibitor and keep more serotonin in your brain, how about we make the gut healthier so that our gut can make more serotonin? And it's really interesting. I don't know if you've ever heard that saying, um, that the gut, you feel it in your gut. Like, I knew better. I felt it in my gut. That's because there's a lot of serotonin made in your gut. I mean, it really is the second brain. And so anxiety and depression really can come from the gut. So the thing that keeps your gut the healthiest, that helps balance the bacteria in your gut, is estrogen. And so when you don't have, remember I drew the graph and it's flatlined, when you don't have estrogen, you don't have stomach acid to break your nutrients down. And then they stick you on a PPI that blocks all of your acid. That's just clown world. I can't even imagine. And then you don't have any estrogen to keep your gut biome in check and the vascularity of your gut. So it's like all a mess. I took antibiotics for a toothache, so now I'm working on my gut. Yeah, absolutely. So lactobacillus and bifidobacterium are the main two probiotics that help with your serotonin. So I'll just throw those out there. I am just tongue-tied like crazy tonight. Okay, so there's something here called the vagus nerve, and this is actually stimulated by this serotonin production because the blood-brain barrier sits like that, and it can't cross. So you have serotonin here and you have serotonin here that are both stimulating the vagus nerve. What does the vagus nerve do? The vagus nerve actually stimulates your heart. So if this pathway is messed up, you are going to have a racing heart. And yeah, I'll repost it. You are going to have a racing heart because that vagus nerve is going to stimulate your heart. So what do you feel when you have anxiety? You feel a racing heart, right? So I also want to talk a little bit about the liver. We don't have a whole lot of time for that, but methylfolate, the MTHFR stuff, definitely want to look at that. I was looking for a question there. Okay, so liver health is very important. Methylation, your liver cleans up toxins. Your liver converts your cholesterol into your testosterone, estrogen, and progesterone. So all the things. Lyme and mold really impacted my vagus nerve. Yes, any kind of infection, toxins, I see it all the time. So yeah, a big part of my practice, where patients actually come see me, is functional medicine. But of course, I'm the hormone girl. But yeah, I see that all the time. Okay, so I do want to talk a little bit about cortisol. Cortisol is the hormone that we call the stress hormone. And so you have a cortisol spike when you wake up in the morning. You have a cortisol spike midday, a cortisol spike in the evening, and then a cortisol spike at night. But then as you get into, hopefully as you get to 11, 12 o'clock, 10 o'clock, hopefully your cortisol is calming down in the evening, because that will cause that stress response, the fight or flight. So shifting your cortisol response, the biggest way that you could shift your cortisol response so you don't have a cortisol spike before bedtime, is to watch your insulin. So this is a graph of insulin and sugar. So whenever you eat sugar, insulin spikes right here and then pulls that sugar down, and then you can get hypoglycemia. And I don't know if you're one of those people that are really prone to low blood sugar and feeling anxious and angry. And so, and cortisol's 4. Yeah. So you can have too low and too high. So it can be really imbalanced. But this correlation between insulin, sugar, and cortisol, the reason I'm going there is because as much refined sugar as you can get out of your diet will really help these insulin surges, and cortisol actually helps regulate blood sugar as well. So that's just part of that. So the hormones in the brain are dopamine, serotonin, and norepinephrine, and all of those are regulated by estrogen. Progesterone has a calming anti-inflammatory effect. We talked a little bit about thyroid. Too much thyroid can stimulate things. Melatonin also drops off in perimenopause. Vitamin D is actually a hormone that helps regulate your testosterone levels, and insulin and cortisol. So, a couple things that you can do. Magnesium is great to calm down these receptor responses at the connections to where the like the acetylcholine receptors. Oh, so magnesium is awesome, can help you fall asleep, but it also helps relax the heart. Fish oil, you need in your liver, you take cholesterol that turns into your progesterone, and then that turns into your estrogens and your testosterone. And the subunit of cholesterol, the omega 3s, are very good for that. So that's why omega 3 fatty acids are really good for making the base unit of your hormones. Um, Vitamin D actually regulates the amount of free testosterone that's in your cells so that you're not tired. Because when you're tired and sluggish, you seem to, feel more depressed. Methylfolate is very important. We talked about that. That helps clear toxins out of the liver and helps regulate inflammation. And getting as many of the chemicals out of your diet as possible. Eating clean is not easy because there's so many chemicals that are like illegal in other countries and stuff, but the better you can be at it, the better. There's also niacin. There's something called COMT. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but that is along with the MTHFR. And if you go back and look at my genetic talk the other night, I talk about the conversion of dopamine into serotonin. People with this COMT defect, niacin is actually the way to short circuit that so that you don't make adrenaline from your dopamine and feel anxious all the time. So I've had a lot of people who that's been very eye-opening for. We do have a genetic test on our website that you can order at Hormone Bliss, the shop Hormone Bliss, but I'll share you things. So my bottom line is let's check your estrogen levels because estrogen regulates all of this. And when we flatline, it is so sad, and women are suffering, and most women after their ovarian failure have almost everything on the list, and it's criminal, and I don't know why other than it's a $16 billion a year industry for antidepressants. So if you want to know why, that's why. Okay, or maybe it's not why, but I think it's why. That's just one little girl's opinion. Okay, so yeah, you get this, you order this, hormonebliss.com, or go to my link in bio, and please, if you love this, share this content, let people know we're here. And I'm here every night at 7:00. So yay! So come back and see me, and you guys can always direct message me if you have questions, and tell me topics you'd like me to talk about because I'll just talk about anything like forever and ever. And then get a kit. It's a little over $100, so just go get a kit and at least see what's going on with your hormones. And then free shipping back. And then our hormone coaches will get on and talk with you about getting on some hormones because you're going to feel so much better. Okay, that's it. I think we're good. That's a wrap. Pregnenolone. Yes, I love pregnenolone. I've got the pregnenolone bottle around here somewhere. Pregnenolone, what she's talking about. Oh, I got to go back. Pregnenolone is actually one of these hormones metabolites. Pregnenolone is right here before progesterone. Nice thing about pregnenolone is that it can turn into, it's a wild card, can turn into other hormones. So I actually do take pregnenolone and I love it. So that is actually something you can do too. Okay, that's it. DM me if you have any questions. And I just love you guys so much. Please don't suffer. Menopause is inevitable. 100% of us will go through it, but suffering is not. Okay, night.